Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Phil. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is. I wish it was physical. We'd have pizza and beer, but in the meantime, I hope to get up soon. But in the meantime, this will have to do. So I'm from a company called TransferWise, and yeah, I'll give you just a quick talk about the company, the debit card product that I've been working on for the past 2 years. That's been in development for 3 years, and my journey from graduating 5 years ago. I'm really excited to be here today. I apologize if this is rushed. So thankfully we have like a code freeze mid-December so that people can take holidays, and I'm really thankful for it. But at the same time, we've got a regulatory deadline to meet soon. So yeah, we're trying to rush to get things out, which is why this might seem a little rushed, but I'm trying my best. So yeah, this is not focused, but now it is. So yeah, at TransferWise, we're trying to give access to money without borders. And what this means is that you can access your money anywhere in the world as a local. You're not getting ripped off by banks. You can spend at the real exchange rate without being ripped off. And we have a mission to do that. It's baked into the company DNA, and this is like a North Star around which we can operate and make decisions and discuss solutions to problems. So quite often we'll have a problem and it'll come up to two solutions, and we'll decide which one gets us closer to the mission faster. Our CEO, Christo, publishes an update of how close we are to achieving that mission every quarter on Twitter, and yeah, it's public. It's fascinating. Eventually, it will be instant and convenient and eventually free to transfer money around the world. That we are dedicated to doing that, and yeah, it will be incredible. I don't know how many of you sent money internationally before, but yeah, it can cost quite a lot sometimes, but we're moving in the right direction. So yeah, TransferWise has been around for about 9 years now, which is yeah, amazing. It's saved 9 million customers over $1.3 billion a year in bank fees. And for some reason the currencies are different there, but we're transferring 4.5 billion euros a month cross borders, and we're a profitable unicorn now for 4 years, which is something that not a lot of unicorns can say, especially in this kind of growth-fueled world that we're in today, where a lot of fintechs try to kind of gobble up as much of the market as they can at a substantial loss. TransferWise operates completely differently to that, which is how we're able to really attack a lot of these banks that are ripping off their customers. We're sustainable. Yeah, and we can start talking about some tech now. So yeah, we have over 300 Java services, 70 front-end services, teams and teams of engineers from platform to mobile developers. We're continuously deploying 3,000 releases a month, and we have 70 nationalities. So yeah, this came from 2 services to kind of a world that is now definitely microservices. And we've kind of built some products along the way. So originally it was the send money, but what we found is that expats living abroad, let's say I moved to Hungary, I would need a Hungarian bank account to receive a salary, and then how would I spend it? I would need that to use that Hungarian bank account. Whereas now I could move to Hungary tomorrow. I could click a few buttons in the app. I could have a Hungarian bank account and I can spend there. This is like amazing for the US as well, which if you're a US citizen living abroad, you have to pay to keep your US bank account open. But with TransferWise, it's fine. And we have a card to spend from that now. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the card. So before this became a thing, we noticed the exact thing we were talking about essentially just then, which is that people move to a country, they receive their bank account, they receive their salary into a bank account, and then they have no way to spend from it. So they have to transfer it to their home account and then spend abroad. And I guess a lot of you probably use Monzo, and you, like when you use an ATM or something, you're always supposed to pay in the local currency. Your like home bank account if it's an older one, won't offer that. So you'll just be constantly being ripped off, which is why we came with the debit card product. And we've brought it to a lot of our customers. They're all international, all over the world, APAC, North America, and the European Economic Area. So coming up in 2020 as well as more countries and more features. So yeah, we've got a debit card, and it's really interesting. The world of the debit card, it's an incredibly complex system to make sure all that money moves around. So I'm going to give you kind of a little picture of what it looks like. So prepare yourself, okay? This is what a debit card system looks like. Now, with TransferWise, as often happens, we'll start with the customer and in the bottom left-hand corner. So this was a reference to a PR stunt we did where we called out banks on their hidden fees and talked about how transparent we are. This is before I worked there actually, but a whole bunch of people got naked and like went into bank in central London and just like called it out on the lack of transparency. And there have been others, but okay. So the customer sends that JSON message that you see to the gateway, and that is the customer ordering a card. And that then goes through a whole bunch of services, the ordering service to create an order, the management service to kind of manage the cards and everything. And it finally goes, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse? Nod tutor if you can, maybe. Okay, cool. So we have this, awesome. We have this payment processor, and they sit in between us and MasterCard and Visa. And what they do is they hold what's called the PAN, which is the 16 number on the front of your card. You need PCI DSS certification if you're going to hold card details, because if when card details get out, you're fucked. Sorry, I don't know if I can. So they give us this unique identifier, which we then use inside our company, essentially. So all we know is this unique identifier, and we use that so that we essentially just substitute it for the PAN. We've now sent a message to the payment processor saying we need a card for this customer down here, and they then send it in this perso file, which is a personalization file. And that then gets sent to our manufacturer. We have a couple around the world now, and they print these cards physically and pack them into envelopes. It's an incredible machine. I've visited the manufacturers once, and it's incredible. They just pump out cards continuously, as you can imagine, like high street banks. They're just making so many. Then the cards go into the shipping company and then makes its way to the customer. This is great. The customer has this card that they can spend abroad, and it's awesome. They go to the merchants, which is their card going over here, and they buy something. They receive goods or services. Now, the merchant sends a message up here to processors, eventually getting to MasterCard and Visa, and they then send it through TCP connection to us, through this to our authorization service. And all this does is check to see whether this customer has enough money, and if they, but some other things as well, but mainly we check to make sure that they've got the money to pay for it, and then it sends back the message to the merchant. This works a little differently if you're if you can buy things from Ryanair on flights in mid-flight. That obviously doesn't send a message to Visa or MasterCard. It uses an offline payment method, but generally how it works is the card in the terminal actually goes all through that to get to the authorization service, and then responds, which is sometimes why it takes a little longer than normal. If there's high latency, it's incredible that seems fairly obvious now, but I find it absolutely fascinating. And then eventually, all of this needs to be cleared, and the money settled, and that's kind of a bit more on the finance side, but essentially we need to transactionally make sure that the money goes to this merchant eventually, right? We can't just have like errors in that and people not getting money. There are fines and stuff. But kind of what I've been focusing on is like the bit around here, which is like making sure people can order cards. Yeah, we've got some features. Actually, we've got a feature now in the app to make it so. Anyway, I'll talk all about that later. But yeah, I've been working kind of down here on the bottom left. Cool. So I think I've talked about everything on here. So yeah, after 3 years, we're kind of now in the world of microservices. We've got 36 engineers. Oh, sorry. Can you now see Tudor in the bottom right? I can minimize that. Cool. Sorry about that. Sweet. So yeah, where was I? We are now in the world of microservices. We're using Jaeger, Envoy, all this cool stuff to make sure all that works well. And this came from essentially one service. We had a monolith, which can be a bit taboo, I suppose, but yeah, especially taboo when we started out. We had just 2 services, which one of them is still in use today. It's an absolute beast. And we've started breaking it up into 80 now. And then we come along and propose to start building it as a monolith. And obviously, engineers who've lived through this hell of breaking a service into 80 are just like, what on earth are you doing? Which is normal, definitely. So yeah, generally, the reason I'm just going to quickly talk about this is because I've worked with startups before, and they are trying to solve a customer problem, and they're just starting out. They know the customer problem they're trying to solve, and they're faced with a decision, really. They're like, do I build a monolith or do I start microservices? And it can work well, but yeah, I would say that it was really successful for us to build a monolith first and then break it up, because initially you're just extremely productive to have everything in one monolith when it's just a few of you working together on it. Yeah, this image is from Martin Fowler, and it talks about comparing the monolith to a microservice, and timing it is quite important. So I think we can, yeah. So eventually, once you have a very large organization, microservices are going to help a lot. But yeah, initially, when you're just trying to solve a customer problem, I would really stress like launching with a monolith. And then once it starts to get big enough and you have enough people working on it that it starts to become complicated to deploy and complicated to manage, then I would, start modularizing it, paying back tech debt, and eventually you have a microservice architecture, which is really good. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly talk about that because hopefully eventually when you guys start solving, I suppose you already are solving problems, but yeah, it's helped us a lot. So breaking apart the monolith, there's a really good book by Sam Newman on this, but essentially, yeah, it's much easier to break apart a monolith than it is to start microservices from the start. And yeah, bounded contexts with Gradle modules are a really good way to do that, and slicing up the database as well. So yeah, hopefully that helps eventually in your kind of first small projects. I'm not saying never do it, but like it's a really good way to learn to build like complex systems if you're doing it for interest. But yeah, if you're trying to like do something really small, I would definitely advise the monolith. And yeah, this is kind of just aimed at people who maybe join a larger organization. Where we were a couple of years ago, we had Feign clients with RESTful API endpoints over HTTP1, and we moved to gRPC. So I'll just very, very quickly cover this, which was really, really useful for us. I can't stress that enough. So it's a remote procedural call framework from Google. And yeah, the client has a stub, which is from this framework, which calls a server from the framework using these proto request and response, which is also from the framework. So it's low latency. It's a really strong contract as opposed to like these JSON things that we were having. Like some teams would have really nice clients where they give you this module to just import, and it's beautiful. But some of them, like it was a mess. So yeah, this is like a really strong contract that you can use, and the layered design enables extension, which is amazing because all of our logging and monitoring around all of our gRPC stuff is now just like part of a library that you import, and none of your application code has to worry about like all this logging monitoring stuff. We've got these beautiful dashboards being created in Grafana that application developers don't even need to care about. It's amazing. And yeah, it's good because you have a whole bunch of languages that it supports, even Lisp. But of course, like there is like just no silver bullet that just solves everything. Like it's not just going to be perfect. I'll just quickly talk about what this looks like. So yeah, you define this kind of proto message. Here we have a person, they have a name and the phone number. The phone number is an object which has a string phone number and a phone type, which is an enum. And here, so that is the kind of message that we saw being sent over the wire here, serialized. And then we have the service which generates the stub and the server side implementation. And this root guide service takes a point, which is just longitude, latitude, and returns a feature, which is whether that is enabled and what its name is. I'm not sure why you would ever create a service to do this, but there you go. And it's amazing because it generates code for you. It generates like code in the language that you're using based on this defined contract. Like it's great. We started using it pretty much everywhere internally. If you end up joining a company that is still using Feign clients or JSON to communicate or REST templates, then yeah, hopefully this helps. It's good. One of the greatest things about it is forward and backward compatibility. So the convention is such that you kind of can't break the messages. And we're using some really interesting like caching methods for the authorization part, which needs to be quick. When you put your card into the merchant's terminal, that has to be super fast. So relying on something that's not going to break is like so useful. And yeah, there's less boilerplate code as well. It's like 10 times faster as well. It's like over HTTP2, which has a whole bunch of optimizations. So externally, we're still using JSON, although Improbable actually have started using it in the client, which is really cool. Maybe we'll start doing that too. I'm not sure. Internally, pretty much everything is now gRPC. We over the last 3 years, we've created something that now 1 million people are using, and this is really special for us because it comes out of this like the culture of TransferWise, which is autonomy. So essentially, like a couple of people get together or literally got together, decided that this was okay, well, I'm sorry if that's annoying. We'll have to live with it. So a bunch of people inside the company just decided to essentially solve this problem for customers who were getting ripped off when they spent abroad by creating a debit card, collected enough data to show that it was the right thing to do, and then just kind of did it. Like it's autonomous within TransferWise. There's this culture to go out, empower each individual engineer to solve problems and create solutions. And this is something that's really close to my heart. Like a year ago, I found something that I thought was like a really strategic thing for us to do. And I collected some data, eventually started working on it, and now it's like a core part of our team strategy. It's amazing kind of what we've been able to do and like the culture that we've been able to to keep as we've scaled up, like the ownership that we've managed to empower people with. Yeah, one of the things that's really kind of close to my heart when I graduated was getting customer feedback and failing fast and failing early. And yeah, I haven't talked much about that today. I've kind of mostly focused on the technical parts. I didn't really know kind of what audience and what you'd be interested in, but we did need to iterate really quickly on the ordering experience, because we were like sending cards all around the world, and the ordering experience needs to be quite slick, otherwise people like drop out. The funnels are really interesting. So that was the first service we actually ended up pulling out, was like the ordering part of it, because yeah, we needed to build that really, really quickly. And then yeah, one more thing about TransferWise is you have like the Facebook employees who are kind of meeting these engineers who've worked at investment banks like me. And it's a really interesting melting pot. So yeah, that's a little bit about TransferWise and what we've been spending the last couple of years on. So yeah, this is a little bit about me. That's me graduating in 2015, ready to go and work at an investment bank for 3 years before going to TransferWise after that. So yeah, I went to an investment bank immediately after uni. And yeah, if I may, I would be honored to kind of talk about a couple of things that I've wish someone had told me when I graduated. Yeah. So yeah. I recently became a senior engineer, which is why this has like offered me a really nice time to reflect on like the journey to get here. So yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, I would say that a really important thing is learning how to and when to say no. So in my first company, Morgan Stanley, they actually paid for a course for someone to come and tell us how to say no, because what graduates they found were so keen to make an impression that they would just say yes to everything. They would say yes to everything and end up doing nothing because they've said yes to so many things. They got so many things to do that they just can't do anything essentially. So yeah, like knowing when to turn down work to focus on what you're doing is like really, really important. And this like dogma is another thing. So it's critical that you understand what you. I hate to preach, but I've found it really useful. So yeah, understand what you're doing. When you do take on a lot of things simultaneously, one way to cut corners is to like rely on other people's knowledge essentially, which can be leaky, or they have only a part of it as well because they are also saying yes to a million things. But yeah, if you take a ticket and you don't know what you're doing, then you might not do it right. You might do it right sometimes, but often you'll just have no idea what you're doing, and then yeah, you don't want to look like an idiot when there's a problem with it and you've no idea why. You've just filled out a ticket. Yeah, if you go to work at a company with microservices and they're still early on their journey, one way you can make a tremendous impact is by building libraries that end up going viral in the company and that tons of people start using. Like if you build one of the things, so for instance, when your service is calling another service and it starts failing, generally what you'll do is you'll put it into like a task framework or something that retries the message maybe like 10 times. But the service that calls you, the requests are now failing. So they will also do the same thing. So they will essentially also call you 10 times, which means for each request, you're now making 10 requests. That is making, it ends up going berserk and start killing services. So like a graceful kind of shutdown library or like handling of this load is really useful all over all over the company essentially, and that's a really good way to leverage yourself. Yeah. And yeah, I think probably most importantly is that like onboarding remotely is going to be hard. And one thing I'm really thankful for is that I've had really good mentors throughout my career. And yeah, I think that initially it's going to be hard for you guys to get that. So hopefully, I don't know what strategies will be useful in finding mentors, but I hope. Yeah, I really hope you guys manage to find mentors. An alternative is a book club. I read one of the books that's coming up next. I read that last year, and 6 months later, I didn't remember anything because I found at uni a lot. I was just absorbing a ton of information and then doing the exam, and then like all of that knowledge goes out of my head and I'm like on to the next subject, on to the next exam. So yeah, I found that when I read this book, I found it interesting, but nothing really stuck. So now what I've done is I go through it extremely slowly, kind of really test my knowledge on it. I really like take the time to completely understand it. And today, actually, I was talking to the principal engineer and managed to cut to the core of one of these issues by literally just verbatim talking about one of the concepts in this book. So yeah, it's really useful, and a book club will be a great way to cement that understanding. Yeah, getting outside has really, really helps during remote work. It can be really, as I'm sure you guys know, well, I'm not sure how it works with Edinburgh Uni at the moment, but yeah, sometimes like make sure you go outside once during the day when you're working, and it's going to be super useful for your mental health. Yeah, group activities that we found really useful is each week one of us creates a Spotify playlist of 20 songs and shares it in amongst the team, and it just like brings everyone together. It's like a really good way to get to know people. We play Human Fall Flat every week at the moment. We're just trying to like keep up the social side of it, because yeah, soon we'll be back, and yeah, it's amazing when we're all together, but we have to do what we can. And yeah, last but not least, these are three books that have made a tremendous impact on my career. My mentor wouldn't let me join the team that I wanted to work on unless I'd read the third one, Agile Software Development Principles, Patterns, and Practices. Clean Code has the don't learning to say no part to it. Designing data-intensive applications is a Bible for high throughput kind of systems. I completely recommend it. And yeah, if you want to learn more about microservices, I would recommend watching some of the videos on Envoy, which is out of Lyft. I think it's now Apache, but it offers you there are some like introductory YouTube videos from Cloud Native Conference, and it's fascinating to see like some of the problems that microservices have and like what this solves. Completely recommend it. Oh yeah, I should do the sales pitch, which is that yes, we are taking grads and interns, and this is like unlike any kind of, well, I'm sure like some, but yeah, grads and interns will be committing code. Like, well, we're moving so fast at this point. We need people who can, who want to solve problems and at speed. There's a process, and yeah, if you go to transferwise.jobs, click on students and grads, you'll see some stuff. This slide was given to me. I'm not sure why. Videos, blogs, and how to apply with 3 check marks are there, but maybe you find them useful. And yeah, lastly, like this should be the part of the talk where I start like firing swag into the audience and like the stampede to the pizza, but yeah, there's not some of that. So hopefully I can get up to a hackathon at some point, bring some swag, and yeah, thanks for listening. I really appreciate the time. Hopefully you guys took away something. That's it. Cool. I will stop sharing when I figure out how to.
Yeah. So, hi again. We'd definitely love to have you over at a hackathon or another physical event whenever that's first possible.
That's awesome.
Thanks for the talk. It's been really nice. I know I appreciated the kind of personal touch towards the end. But let's look at some of the questions that people asked. Okay, so the first question that we got is, what do you mean by strong contract?
So what I mean by that is that, so let's say you have, what can happen sometimes is you agree on a contract in Notepad or something, or you upload it to some like documentation, or it's written in pseudocode. And this happened. Someone actually told me about this happening inside an investment bank. Is that after like weeks or months later, they came to like finally link up the two services, and it didn't work because one person had interpreted the contract one way and someone else had not. So obviously this is like an extreme example, but that's kind of what I mean. Like, this is not possible with gRPC really. And the way it promotes the writing of the contract and how it's shared between client and server. So I hope that's clear.
Yeah. Next one is a bit more general, but what advice would you have for newcomers in this industry? You talked about advice for grads a bit later on in the talk, but specifically in this industry, is there any?
No, that's a really good question. I've had that before. Our UX writer came from working at the NHS and was just like, felt a bit out of his depth because, fintech is, it's moving fast. But I think the advice I would give is to just like approach it with an open mind, find out what interests you, just don't put pressure on yourself to like pick it up overnight. It's something that comes after like a lot of kind of repeated action till it becomes kind of habit, you know, like I wouldn't put pressure on yourself to just like learn the domain. It will come in time. Yeah.
Let's see.
But
this one got.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, you go.
Yeah, sure. So if you're interested, like a lot of these companies have APIs that you can start playing around with, and that'll help you kind of understand what these things are doing by actually using it. And that then when you actually join the company, you can approach it with on a really like nice playing field because you're familiar with the API, which is like a user interface in itself.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the next question?
Yeah, this one got a few upvotes. So what's a good way of approaching somebody who want to mentor you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I find it really useful to kind of this remotely. I think it's going to be a bit more difficult. I think your lead can help with that. I think in an office environment, it's a lot easier to just like kind of be fresh faced and like ask people to go for coffee and just like start just talking to different people. I found coffee helps a lot, or beer as well. But yeah, mainly, coffee.
Yeah, I can get behind that piece of advice.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll think about that actually, and I'll maybe reach out to you, tutor, with some more stuff. Maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you want to send anything else, I can make sure it gets to.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
Looks like we got another one. Any advice for where to host our own microservices or what TransferWise uses?
Well, we're on AWS. The one. I can't remember what it's called. A startup, like a friend has just started up and he's using Heroku. Heroku is great. It's more expensive, but Heroku is great. I I can't remember why. I've drawn a blank on why, but we found it really useful. I think there's less setup involved. Heroku.
Yeah.
I don't remember why. I'll send that over as well.
Yeah. Another one is, how many internship positions do you have available, and what specific focuses, like front end, back end, DevOps?
I have that. Someone added. Hang on. Am I sharing my screen?
I think you can.
No, it's okay. Someone wrote this as a note. Okay, so we have approximately 30 grads and 30 interns. We may have additional positions in analytics, people, team, finance, AML, but for computing, so that's in terms of the numbers. The next question was like, do I have a better idea of what they're going to be kind of doing?
Like front end, back end, etc.
Both. Yeah, whatever your strength is or want your strengths to be. We had a grad in our team, a couple of grads actually, who ended up building a transaction simulator for our staging environment. So it would just like pump out realistic looking transactions so that we could kind of test things in staging. So 3 of them built that. We didn't have any front end graduate developers, but there definitely are. Like, there definitely are. Web and Android and iOS.
Yeah. Other than this, it's just a lot of people that appreciated the chaotic nature of some of the slides, it seems.
Awesome. Well, hope you...
I can definitely get behind as well. Someone's typing. Right, so we got another serious question. What's your interview process like?
Yeah, I also have that. So first we go through an application review, which just like basic criteria. Then we go through a skills test. For technical roles, there will be a hacker rank test, apparently, or similar. But I don't agree with what. Yes, there will be a skills test. There will be a culture interview, which is just a video interview to check your alignment with our values, and a final interview, which will be a one-to-one interview or an assessment center to be confirmed very soon. So application review, skills test, culture interview, and final interview.
Well, we'll just give it a few more seconds, see if anyone else types anything, because there's a bit of a delay between us speaking and it being broadcast live, so just wait a bit longer. But I think that's been most of the questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume people are satisfied with your answers. So again, thank you so much for coming. It was great to have you, and hopefully we'll see you again at other events maybe.
I hope so too. Thank you. I'm excited for the next talk now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, so that's been Phil from TransferWise. Great talk. I'm happy to see that people engaged and asked quite a lot of questions as well. I think we got some very good points out of him due to the good questions that you asked.